Sankalps from Sadhana. On his way back from Kanyakumari, what is notable about the article is that Prime Minister Modi has elucidated the priorities for the third term. Three issues stand out in the article written by the Prime Minister. First, what does Prime Minister mean when he says, we also need to change our traditional way of thinking regarding reform. Bharat cannot limit reform just to economic reforms. We must move forward in every aspect of life towards the direction of the reforms. Our reform should also align with the aspiration of a Viksit Bharat. That's one. First point. The second thing that stands out is in the context of the world. Vasudev Kutumbakam. So what does he mean? He says we must see Bharat's development in a global context, and for this it is essential that we understand Bharat's internal capabilities. The world of 21st century is looking towards Bharat with many hopes, and we need to make several changes to move forward in global scenario. So what does India think of itself in context of a global role? And the third one, and then after that I'll go back to the first, we must understand that the reform can never be unidimensional process for any country. Therefore, I have laid out the vision of reform, perform and transform. The responsibility of reform lies with leadership. Based on that, our bureaucracy performs, and when the people join in with the spirit of Jan Bhagidari, we witness transformation taking place. On this issue, I am joined by Arun Anand, author and a senior journalist, and with me in studio, input editor, News 9 Live, Brijesh Pandey. Arun, we'll go back to the first statement of the Prime Minister. New Sankalps from Sadhana. When Prime Minister says, Arun, that India cannot be limited to economic reforms, what is Prime Minister hinting at? Cultural nationalism, population policy, the representation, the act which was enacted by Narasimha Rao in wake of Babri Masjid demolition. Is he talking about a sort of a different social outlook? What is he saying?
Karthikeya, thank you for inviting me for the discussion. It's always a pleasure to be, at the panel when you are holding the discussion. And also good evening to all the viewers. See, the thing is that Prime Minister Narendra Modi, what he has said that, so it basically comes from the philosophy of integral humanism, which is the official ideology of BJP, which is propounded by Deen Dayal Upadhyay in 1960s. Deen Dayal Upadhyay was an RSS pracharak, a full-timer. There, Deen Dayal Upadhyay had challenged the notion of the Western framework of democracy and economics and socio-economy, that the fundamental assumption of the West was that individuals have to be treated as an economic man, basically. When it comes to, the reforms in the society, the most important thing is economy. And you have to talk about economic man. Economic man is a concept which was given by John Stuart Mill. So economic, whereas Deen Dayal Upadhyay has talked about the whole man. So the philosophy of, it's a little complex, but I've written an article on this recently, so people can search for that also. So what he is talking about, what Prime Minister is talking about, if I try to break it down in layman's language, economic reforms are based on certain cultural and social structures. So we have to work on these cultural and social structures if we really want to make economic reform sustainable. One. Second, that economic reforms present only a fraction of the picture if we want to reform the whole society. The cultural and the social structures, they also need to be reformed. So he's talking about basically in the larger context. And if I further break it down, so of course that means basically bringing uniform civil code, bringing population control bill, rejuvenating the spiritual and cultural centers with much greater speed, which represents Sanatan Dharma. And we, he continues to be and to remain very unapologetic about the Sanatan, heritage or the Sanatan identity of Bharat, of BJP, and of himself.
Okay, that's very important. Brijesh, as a person who covers BJP, when Prime Minister says that reforms cannot be limited to in the area of economy, what is the first thing which you understand?
Well, I think, what he's trying to talk about is the holistic development. He's saying that, when economic aspect cannot be the only criteria of reforms, because whenever we talk of reform, the layman language, 99% of the time when we refer to reform, it is about economic reforms, say, 1991 when we saw the entire economic rules being rewritten, India undergoing a kind of a big tectonic economic information, to even most of the assumptions or most of the policies which the government of India has taken off late also. It is usually when we talk of reform, it is about the economics. The thing is that, in this particular context, he is basically talking in the social cultural milieu and also about the holistic development of the society per se, and not talking only about piecemeal, about economic reforms only, something which is, not only but also only catering to the materialistic need of the individual. This is the reason why, I feel that this is a very important articulation of somebody who has just gotten an absolute majority or thumping majority, just a day before the actual results are cast. So he is going to push this particular aspect of his, the next 100-day agenda, and be extremely fascinating to see how this unfolds.
There's a generation of Indians which have grown up thinking that the cultural agenda of Bharatiya Janata Party is only limited to three things, or has been limited to three things: Article 370, Uniform Civil Code of Law, and Ram Mandir. Arun, I would like you to expand on it when in context of these reforms, because यही सुनने में आया, यही आपने पढ़ा, यही पढ़ के बड़े हो गए, ये तीन चीज चाहिए. But I don't think that I don't think the idea of RSS is limited to these three things. They can be part of it. Can you elucidate on it? Can apart the cultural also include the word ideological?
See, the Prime Minister is talking about, he is taking this whole concept to a new level, from politics to polity. See, when RSS was set up, there is a very clear-cut, there is an absolute clarity within Sangh Parivar that politics cannot bring permanent transformation in the society. Only society can transform itself. That is what, like Prajesh was also saying. So society can only transform itself. To begin with, these three: Uniform Civil Code, this Ram Mandir. So these issues and Article 370. So these were kind of a representative of, bringing initiating that kind of a change, basically, or initiating that kind of thinking, that kind of nationalistic thinking. Now the thing is that, as far as Prime Minister is concerned, he has been an RSS pracharak, and he is very well versed with the ideology of Sangh. And he talked about Eknath Ranade when he went to Kanyakumari. Eknath Ranade was the former General Secretary of RSS, who had basically led the initiative to build Kanyakumari, this Vivekanand Rock movement. So what Prime Minister is talking about, bringing a permanent change in the society, a transformation in the society. And when he talks about Viksit Bharat, so the concept of Viksit in Indian context is very much different from the concept of Viksit in the Western world. For us, and I think, like what Prajesh has said, that in the first 100 days, you are going to see a massive push. He's going to talk more and more about duties, and less, there has been a great focus on, this is our right, and that is our right. But nobody talks about, the fundamental.
The last Prime Minister, Arun, the last Prime Minister who spoke about duties was Indira Gandhi. I'm not making any comparison, but only a powerful Prime Minister can, talk about fundamental, and duties are part of a constitution. They're part of a constitution.
Only powerful Prime Ministers can do it.
Arun?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And so far, the kind of democracy which we have developed, it's basically a typical, Westminster model, and which is based on the rights approach, and especially after the left dominated, discourse over the last 6.5, 7 decades in this country. So we have talked largely about our rights. So Prime Minister will talk about duties. You have to first, जो उन्होंने राम मंदिर के जो निर्माण हुआ उसके लिए भी कार्तिक है कि बड़ा सिंपल सा फिलॉसफी है प्राइम मिनिस्टर का, जो राम मंदिर के निर्माण में भी संघ परिवार ने मैनिफेस्ट किया, मुझसे पहले मेरा परिवार और मेरे परिवार से पहले मेरा समाज और मेरे समाज से पहले जो है विश्व। मुझे इन चीजों का ध्यान रखना है। सो दिस इज द मैनिफेस्टेशन, दिस इज व्हाट इज टॉकिंग।
So what do you, I don't know, what do you expect in the first 100 days when Prime Minister is talking about a global approach, development context of the role which India will be playing globally, and is there a possibility of some sort of an administrative transformation, because you used the word bureaucracy, and the last time the report came out, Mr. Moily was the head, and it's still resting somewhere peacefully in some of the, I don't know which part of the government archive.
See, if you look at the last 10 years of Narendra Modi government, the single point which is driving this government is a search for selfhood. What is the selfhood of this country? Some people have given it the name of decolonization also. So, but जिसको बोलते हैं कि स्व की खोज. So we talked about Swaraj and we talked about Swadesh. But what is this Swa, which has gone missing now? So I think the Prime Minister, the first 100 days, one of the biggest colonial kind of baggages which we have is that of the bureaucracy. It's an Indian. It's a British colonial system which by which we are governed. So I think that is what we are going to see the change. There's going to be a lot of restructuring in the administration. I think that's what we are looking at.
Because if you read the article, he talks about Swami Vivekananda. He has mentioned Rana Day, and he says that in 1897 Swami Vivekananda said we must keep, dedicate 50 years for fighting for our freedom, and he has again said that next 50 years should be dedicated to the idea of India and Bharat. So when Prime Minister says that, what I want to understand from the politics of the opposition also, what space do they have, because Modi is not only talking about winning an election. His ideology is election plus plus. आप देखेंगे कैसे, बोलेंगे कैसे, खाएंगे कैसे, आपके friends भी कैसे होंगे, what is your position on the world. This is the plus 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 government, it is not ending with election, it goes beyond that. So where do you see an opposite, you can critique it also, but it's a plus 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 system.
No, I mean, see, this is what happens, when you are when you have absolute power, you would want to push your own set of ideas, you would want to push your own set of thoughts, people you follow, or people you have idealized like Swami Vivekananda, or you have a system like RSS which has propagated its own economic, social, cultural milieu, you would want to push it and propagate it. There's nothing wrong in it. If you come from a slightly different background and you have the exact number of power or exact number of seats, this is exactly what you will do. The Prime Minister is wanting to bring a structural change in the way either we look and approach the country. He wants the Indians to be more confident about it and not being ashamed as as being circulated in certain cadre. But I don't think that that opposition has anything to do with it. In politics, once you are down some number of seats and you see a revival of opposition, I think a lot changes. So
I don't, before
I would limit it just to the BJP and Modi rather than
of you. How does the RSS sees, the Prime Minister went to this memorial, and I would say the two tallest leaders when the second Sar Sangachalak was at the helm of affair was Balasaheb Devras and Rana Day. One went in exile for 10 years and another ended up spending his entire life dedicated to this monument. Any observer was, the first thing which I thought was when this decision was made कि बाला साहेब ने 10 साल अपने जीवन के अलग बिता दिए, वो खेती करने चले गए, और एकनाथ जी जो वो भी बड़े नेता एक शख्सियत थे, वो यहाँ आ गए और संघ की मुख्य धारा से अलग थे, जबकि वो प्राण प्रचारक भी रहे हैं पूर्व के. Someone who has covered it, part of that tradition, how do you look at this when Prime Minister mentions him, goes there, writes an article?
I think the Prime Minister mentioned that probably has worked with also Eknath
Yes.
Ranade.
But how do you see, आप कैसे देखते हो? How do you see that?
I think, if there is any doubt in anybody's mind, and especially in context of a recent interview given by the BJP national president, and a controversy was created that BJP doesn't need RSS, or BJP and RSS, there is a dichotomy or there is a conflict between the two. I think the very fact that Prime Minister has gone there, he's talked about Eknath Ranade, and he's taking forward the same philosophy unapologetically. So that should put to rest if there are any, such rumors or gossips or doubts about, a kind of an uneasy relationship between RSS and BJP. That's not the case.
Thank you so much, Arun. But you should also write a book on this, how this memorial came about. Not a chapter, but a complete book, how he was asked to work on that. I think it merits an entire book, layers of history. That's like decolonizing contemporary history. Generally, people have grown up critiquing things from the perspective of Congress in 60s, 70s, 80s. I think people also need to understand the internal ecosystem of BJP and RSS to see those contemporary developments from that organization perspective. I think that's what is required. Thank you, Arun. Thank you so much for joining me. So this was on point 2. And the on point 3 is Manipur. Manipur continues to battle flash floods and inundations. However, relief and rescue operations are underway in the state.